Okay, so we're still, I guess, kind of kicking off season 7. The first episode will be out Monday, and that's going to be about Hereditary from 2018. But one of the other things we're wanting to do this season is to provide additional content. And so, aside from like our main episodes on Mondays, we may drop some of these bonus episodes just occasionally. Mm-hmm. And also, just another example, we have a new short horror story up on the website today. So if you go to thehorrific.com and click on stories, you can read that. Also,
which I did read that.
Oh, did
Very
you?
good.
Thank
yes,
you.
I did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you go back and listen to our season 7 kickoff episode, we talk about like the rules for how you can enter to win a free movie ticket each week. So I would advise that you do that. But in the meantime, today on, I don't know, day, 17 or something of the quarantine?
Yep.
We are here to talk about Tiger King.
Right. I want to add something to this real quick.
Okay.
You're talking to the Trash King right now, okay?
Okay, so I was going to say, we're going to talk about Tiger King for 2 reasons. Number one, we're both from Oklahoma, so we're more qualified than most people. Number 2, you are what I would consider a sommelier of trash television.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I would say trash documentaries, trash television sometimes, but yes.
Well, you like real life stuff on TV.
Real life.
So yeah, documentaries, reality series, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I actually inherited this from my mother. She'll send me these shows that are like, hey, this is terrible, you got to watch it. And it's like, love you, Mom. But yeah, this is like, so right now Tiger King's like blowing up and like huge.
The memes are killing me, dude. Like,
and it's hilarious.
I cannot look at my phone during anything like a work call or anything because there's like a 50% chance that I'm just going to crack up out loud.
Right. Yeah, it's hilarious. And so we're obviously going to talk about it because we both watched it and we figured might as well. But it's like, well, you know, there's obviously more out there, which we'll get to.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give some more lists for people.
Yeah, it's only 6 episodes. And that, you know, if you're quarantined, stuck in an apartment without much else to do, you're going to burn through that pretty quick. Right. So you get to give all of our listener the gift of hours of additional similar entertainment.
Well, it's true. And we should also say this, too, that that's also something that me and your wife have in common. We both love the trash shows.
Big time. And
so, like, we'll, like, for Christmas, like, I got her a bunch of terrible documentaries because it's like, it's live action stuff. You got to watch this stuff.
Yeah.
I would like to put, like, a little caveat that, like, if it's, like, obviously trash, I'll still watch it, but it's lower class trash. Like, I'm talking Jersey Shore.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking some of that stuff on Animal Planet. Just like, yeah, it's like, okay, well, that's trashy, but let's get to, like, the people who don't. Let's get to the ones who embrace it a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, like, not staged. Like, it has to feel real, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, with the Tiger King, like you're saying, we're both from Oklahoma. So when I saw that this guy was from Oklahoma, he has this guy mullet. He has an eye ring, you know, some piercings, multiple husbands,
terrible
tattoos, carries a gun on his hip. It's like, you know, I am proud to be an American because it allows people to be freaks like that. I support it.
Yes.
Like, that's what it allows. If you want everyone to be suit and tie, go over to Russia, idiots. You know what I mean? This guy wanted to have some tigers. Sure, he was breeding them. I'm not getting into the whole, like, if it's good or bad. I don't really care. I'm not an activist. However, I'm just saying, if you've seen Tiger King, you know, and this is kind of for you, Dan, he was kind of like, I mean, I feel like Carol Baskins kind of started this, and he took it, and he's so dumb that he just kept it going to eventually where he may or may not have paid someone to try to kill her.
Well,
That's up for debate.
okay, let's come back to that because I have strong feelings on that. But
sorry, I'll let you.
Well, I was just going to say, before we even get into any of that, I think it's important that we explain. So there's a lot of weird stuff in this documentary, but there's a lot of stuff in this documentary that isn't that weird. Like the things that
Is it normal? That's Oklahomans.
Yes, no, 100%. And but the thing is, like, you see people posting online, like the reactions to this, and to me, a lot of them are reacting to the things that aren't all that out of place if you live in Oklahoma.
Yeah, and one of the things that pisses me off, not pisses me off, it irks me, because like we were saying, we love the memes of this. Like, it's so funny. The thing that irks me is the ones that, like, they'll show a picture of, like, Oklahoma City or, like, the skyline or Bartlesville's skyline or wherever. And they'll be like, I'm from this Oklahoma, not from this Oklahoma. It's a picture of Joe Exotic with the tiger. It's like, shut up. Like, you're missing the point. Like,
exactly.
This guy is going to make everyone seem like that's the case in Oklahoma. Like, and if you think that's the case, you're super insecure, and you should probably move to Kansas.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, my family wasn't so sure that this guy wasn't related to us somehow. It was just like, it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I think everybody kind of knows somebody that would exist in that realm. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you were coming down to Austin to visit us and you pulled over for gas in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, and you saw a dude pull up in a dually and get out, and he had that leg brace and the eyebrow ring and the tattoos and the gun on his hip and the mullet, like, basically, if Joe Exotic stepped out of a truck and started filling up with gas, you would not bat an eye. That guy absolutely looks just like a ton of other guys that are in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why, like, with that meme, it's like, yeah, but your next door neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe Exotic.
Yeah,
so
right.
You kind of are from that. Yeah, it's hilarious, man. It just, the thing is, and I think with this documentary, I think it initially was started to be like a activist, like, against, like, the having exotic animals in the United States. And then they realized the gold mine that they had of Joe Exotic. And it's just like, each episode is just like, it makes you say, what the fuck? It makes you say that 10 times. And it's like, oh, so Joe Exotic had multiple husbands, had multiple exotic animals, carried a gun on his hip. And you're like, okay, I can hang with that. And then it starts talking about the Don guy in South Carolina who had multiple wives.
Yeah.
So, Doc. Exotic animal. You're like, oh, Doc. Yeah, Doc. Doc Antler. Is that what it is?
Antle.
Doc Antler. And you're like, okay, that's good. And then it starts talking about Carol Baskins and, like, the lady who's against all this. But you're like, and then she killed her husband. Like, that's what it was. Just like the first, like, 3 episodes, it was like, oh, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, like, every time you think you've reached peak, well, that's weird. It takes another step. But I mean, and just to go back, some of the stuff, like, I just want to reiterate, like, riding 4-wheelers around, having land outside of town, shooting guns on your property. That is all super common stuff in Oklahoma. Like, a lot of the things that you saw are not out of the ordinary and not necessarily indicative of like, craziness. You know what I mean? Right. Like a lot of what was going on there, he obviously is a very different individual, and the multiple husbands and everything is not, the thing that you would expect to find every day in Oklahoma. But there was a lot of stuff about it that I feel like people are thinking of as just completely foreign, when really that's just how part of the country lives. It's small town stuff. Everybody knows everybody. And, I thought the local police force there was kind of surprisingly competent.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, there was things that, like, you realize, like, okay, so what you have is this guy who's a redneck. So if he didn't have the exotic zoo, then he'd probably been known as one of the good old boys, is what they say.
Yeah.
You know? But then, all that happened in this situation was one of the good old boys found out that you can buy a tiger for $2,000.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Katie and I were even like, hey, if we get a stimulus check. I mean, no, but
yeah.
The thing, too, that I guess he started out like being a rescue and was really against kind of like how Carol supposedly is, where like you shouldn't breed them, whatever. It honestly seems like it was like this is almost like it was a drug documentary where like they started off with like a party drug, next thing you know they're involved with the Mexican cartel and they're getting arrested. Yeah. It just got deeper and deeper and deeper and involved. Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, it was just like a lot of times, like I purposely, and it's probably not healthy. It's not healthy. It's just like I purposely will not watch something that's popular if I don't. It's just like if I just feel like people are talking about it, like I did with Making a Murder, and like it's just like okay, whatever. And the Tiger King was strictly I heard all of it, and I saw one meme that was it said like going in, I'm hanging in there in 2020. Or this is the equivalent how they were hanging into how the situation of how 2020 is going so far, and it was a picture of his eye ring that's barely in. I was like, I gotta know who this guy is. Like, I gotta see. And then I started. I was like, oh, Oklahoman. Yeah. Okay. And then it starts. It's like in his first episode. And you're like, okay, this is strange, but I'm on board. Yeah. And then he does. Then he runs for president. Yeah. Joe Exotic.
Yeah.
President.
Yeah. And then governor. And he got 19% of the libertarian votes.
And
he was legitimately disappointed when he didn't win.
He was. He had a viewing party. Yeah. And he also like put out like the best like presidential video where he says like something to the effect of like I'm broke as shit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Done some kinky sex. I've done some drugs in my past. You know, just like laying it all out there. Is like, this is the greatest. Like, I couldn't help. I felt so good watching that that I've never. It was just like it was like a drug to me, where it was like this is happening, and I couldn't. I almost had tears in my eyes. And I was like, this is amazing.
Well, and you know, he also spends a lot of time making fake music videos. He is a fake country music star.
Yes.
Spends, God, I wonder how much time on those. But like, if you think about, and maybe I think the real problem, the reason many people see this is just so completely out there and like mind blowing and like foreign, and how does this exist in America, is because they haven't lived in close proximity to people that do meth before.
That's true.
Like, a lot of the behavior in this is a lot less shocking when you're like, well, yeah, they were all on meth a lot. And you're like, oh, yeah, most of this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, even like the producing of it, you know, they talk about like when you do meth, it goes to your teeth, which is why you have a lot of teeth rot. And then it cuts to his first husband. Mm-hmm. And he's smiling, and he has like 4 teeth, and it's like, that's messed up for one. That's kind of jacked up to do, but it's like, okay.
But it cracked me up because then he was like, I mean, yeah, I'll admit I did some meth. And I was like, yeah, you're not telling me anything that your mouth, lack of shirt, and terrible tattoos didn't already tell me.
Yeah, it was, and then it starts in with the Carol Baskin.
Yeah.
So this lady is with PETA, I guess, and she rescues these exotic animals, because I guess what really happens is people buy these cubs for like $2,000 or however much, and realize it takes a lot to feed them, and they get real aggressive, and you know anyway, so you have Joe Exotic doing his own thing, going from like mall to mall, Next thing you know, you had Carol Baskins coming in, and she was calling the malls that he was going to stop so he wouldn't show the Cubs and wouldn't get people involved, and eventually got him shut down where he couldn't do his tour, which was big his some income for him. So got that shut down, and then it was just like, so that I don't know who started the feud, but that I felt like amped up the feud. So next thing you know, Joe Exotic, who had his own TV show, I think they're on YouTube, by the way, just would straight up threaten Carol Baskin and kill dummies that she said were Carol Baskin. And it was like, well, I was not justifying this, but you have a guy who's kind of dumb already, on drugs, more than likely, is going to do stupid stuff, and he has the money to produce a show of his own, and all along kind of getting egged on by a reality TV show producer.
Yes, and by other people there with him who are also on drugs, for whom he is the meal ticket, so they have every incentive to keep him happy with them.
Yeah, and it even talks in the show about how he would put on a show when the cameras are on, firing people randomly and stuff. You come to find out with Carol Baskin, she her husband went missing, who was 20 years older than her. He was a millionaire. Illiterate millionaire, though. If you read the letter that is in the documentary, I have terrible spelling, but that was something else. And and then he went missing. Well,
and he was a serial cheater.
Yeah.
He had a girlfriend in Costa Rica.
Yeah, but who doesn't?
Well, all of us that can't afford to fly to Costa Rica.
Yeah. Had a home family. Yeah, but next thing you know, he's missing. They say missing. She owns they have multiple big animals that could potentially, I'm just saying, could eat a human. It's happened in history before. Meat grinder could happen.
Yeah.
You never know. But anyway, so she had this lady who's showing that she's like the saint of rescuing these exotic animals. Really, at the end of the day, they're caged up and they're not that great. Cages. It's the exact same thing.
Right.
Except she's just not breeding them, and she's making money off of it, and she's getting volunteers, and she's getting PETA behind them, and then it talks about her husband disappearing and her getting the money, and it's just good Lord, this lady is. I felt like the lady was very manipulative. So if you poke a bear, or I guess
if you poke a tiger,
you're gonna get bit. But so this documentary came out, and it was just, I think the idea initially was to like a Blackfish kind of thing, and which is what Carol Baskins is saying it was supposedly supposed to be. Lion, she's lying, and they and then they land on this gold mine, which was Joe Exotic, and how crazy it was, and it was also really interesting watching because it was current.
Yes. Yeah, for
sure.
So
this just happened. He just went to jail not too long ago.
Yeah.
So at the end, he gets involved with a scumbag.
Yes.
Was his name Jeff Lowe?
I think so.
Scumbag. He's one of those dudes that wears a bandana to cover a bald spot. If I'm starting to lose my hair, dude, I'm shaving bald.
Yes. Yeah.
Joe Rogan style, dude.
Yep.
Ripped up. Yep. He's hiding it. He's wearing those dad jeans, Harley Davidson jacket.
Yeah.
Didn't even ride a bike. I mean, just
exactly. That
just
guy.
I think they showed him riding, but you could tell he was uncomfortable. People smoking cigarettes, I can tell that.
When people in movies who don't smoke have to pretend to smoke cigarette. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, so I don't know, man. To me, where a lot of it is the behavior of Joe and his meth buddies is very normal. And I think where he got into trouble was when that started being online. Then all of a sudden that becomes all of this just insanity that he's been spewing, that's hatred for this woman that I don't think he had any intention of actually killing her. I think this was all grandstanding. He liked having an enemy that he could get online and make fun of and use as fuel. And I think that they just got the low guy wanted to have unfettered access to everything,
Right.
but also was worried about getting in trouble because the park money was being used for the campaign and other stuff, which was illegal. And I think that he wanted to take the money in the park and move it and open that new thing down there by the casino in Durant because he thought it was a better location, and get in business with that other guy who he could use to make money off of. So I think it was a setup. Yeah. I think that I don't think Joe paid anybody to kill Carol. I don't think he cared that much, or would even have been, present of mind enough to plan that. I mean,
yeah.
What good would it do him? She was worth so much more to him as a thing to get online and rant about than she would be dead.
Right. It's like a professional wrestling thing. You got the heel and the hero, and it's all a production. Right, and it even talks about like they knew that that was like basically getting views in a way. Yeah. Now, Carol was like legally taking Joe to court, and they would say like, "Did you say this?" And he's like, "Well, hell yeah, I did." Mm-hmm. And you're like, "You damn right you did." Now, here's the thing: when it comes, it doesn't show his drug use. It just says that he had done it. But when it comes to kind of almost desperate times, so like he knew that he was in trouble for using the funds of the park to do his political stuff. That's not like it. I mean, he wasn't going to prison for the rest of his life for that. Yeah. It's recorded by Jeff Lowe where he's like freaking out on Joe, and you can tell Joe's like, what the hell? Like, we were just talking. So, it's Jeff trying to cover his butt. You know that he had spent money on his own. Yeah. Next thing you know, this fat guy with a squire haircut shows up who is a terrible person, but at the same time has the most badass scene in the whole film, which is the jet ski scene when he's at the pond. Yeah. But he gets in trouble for having an undocumented, what was it, lemur?
Right, yeah.
And he's getting his
previous legal troubles, yeah.
And so to get out of trouble, he says, he's been contacted by Joe to kill Carol Baskin. So like it felt like it was a setup. And then you have this guy who technically bailed to South Carolina. Said, "Oh yeah, he paid me $3,000. We agreed on $5. He paid me $3." And it was like, "Well, did he pay cash? Like, do you have proof?" Yeah. And next thing you know, this guy's in jail. And then come to find out, he killed tigers by shooting them in the head. Yeah.
Well, and that guy too. When you listen to him, he's like, "Yeah, so I started driving out to Florida to kill her, and I guess at some point I just decided I wasn't going to go through with it, so I went to South Carolina and partied instead." But it's like he wouldn't come out and say like I couldn't do it or I had second thoughts. He's like, I mean, allegedly I just couldn't do it or something. It's like you're not even telling your own lie convincingly, dude.
Right. And it's just like if the FBI has to say like you have like it's the money that we have to get, but I don't know if that's necessarily true because I don't know. But it's I felt like it was almost kind of coaching on now. But I want to say this though: if you're, like I said, if you're a drug user, he lost his farm, he's on the run with his new husband, having to sell some cubs that he breed, just thinking he's gonna get in trouble. That's when desperate things happen, and that's when bad decisions are made. And who knows? Joe could have gone down there and tried to kill her just out of craze that he was in. Who knows? Maybe he was trying to get better. So. You never know. If you say that you're going to kill someone enough times, you should listen to them. Yeah. But at the same time, I think he was set up in that situation. Now, he done some illegal shit. Yeah. But
like meth.
Who hasn't? Anyway, so you have that going on. Next thing you know, it ends and it tries to show like this many exotic animals are in the United States, and this is how many are in the wild. Whatever. But so this documentary, I wanted to recommend if someone's listening to this. We normally do horror movies. Yeah. I had to do this over Tiger King because it's my genre. Yeah. If it's not horror, this is what I'm watching.
It's your other true love.
Yeah, it is. And so I have a couple other movies that I think that are documentaries that I think that people should watch.
So if someone has watched the Tiger King and they found themselves entertained, confused, and craving more, you are presenting some good follow-up options.
Right. Absolutely. So I'm going to start this off with the TV show. It was on A&E. It's called Small Town Security. Or I'm sorry, it was on AMC.
Yeah.
And it's called Small Town Security.
Yep.
It was on for 3 seasons. Starts to get weird at the end. One of my all-time favorite
shows. It got weird at the end of the first episode.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they start like doing production stuff at the end of the season.
Right, sure.
So basically, just a small little what it's about. It's about a security company in a small town, hence the name, owned by Joan. Owned by Joan and her husband Erwin. Erwin's one of the best people in the world.
Yeah.
As far as like just gold, seems real innocent. Joan's really aggressive. She also has Parkinson's, starting to lose a little bit. Their right hand man is a guy who used to be a woman, and he is in love with Joan Copeland, and
who is roughly 30 years his senior,
if not more. Yeah. And Erwin knows about it. Like, it's just a weird dynamic, and it's have weird characters, and it's all real, you know.
Yeah.
Such a good show. So that's the first show.
Yeah, and also on that one, there are just so many wonderful moments. Like, you will be using the word shit stick in regular conversation because that's a real thing, not an insult in this world. Yeah. And they also, it's just like, you didn't even mention her TV show.
Right.
So Joan has a local access TV show on top of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she had her own local TV show, and she was very brash, I guess. Is that what you would say? Like, very like, the show is one of the great things is they talk about like shit sticks, like you're talking about, or hemorrhoids, or like just whatever. There's some sexual content, like talk, and she's just very open about it. And so when she was on this live like PBS style local TV show, she would talk about things like that and get in trouble.
Well, didn't she lose her show the first time for being obscene?
I think so, yeah. But they're also in like a small southern town, so it's like obscene is gonna, if you say penis or vagina, you know. So but yeah, that was and Gilbert Gottfried actually has a little part in an episode in season 3 towards like it's a reality show, but he's in it as Gilbert Gottfried, so it was pretty interesting. But, so
anyway, I would second the recommendation on that one.
It's very good. The next one is a documentary called Wonderful Whites of West Virginia.
Oh, yes.
Highly recommend this one, too. This one is buy-worthy. You can buy it and watch it multiple times. I know I did. This is about a crazy family, last name of Whites, that live in West Virginia. And they're just... I would say that they are abusers of multiple things. They abuse people, they abuse drugs, they abuse alcohol, and they abuse like the Social Security system. Most of them have been to jail. I would probably say a lot of them, or if not all, have been to jail. It kind of revolves around a guy named Jessica White. He is the dancing outlaw. His father was what do they call that? Not a tap dancer, but
I can't remember the name either. But it's kind of like almost like country folk tap dancing. Yeah, it's like it's weird,
like a 2-step kind of thing. But I guess you would say like Anyway, so. It's kind of about Jesco White's family. So Jesco had a documentary on himself put out, and that I actually hadn't seen it. It was by like PBS or something like that. But this one's kind of more about his family. So you see more about like his sister Mammy, or his sisters, I guess I should say. you see more about them, her family. It has like a really funny scene where they're talking. One of Jesco's nephews is talking about the mating call for West Virginia, or for where they live, and it was a bunch of pills in a bottle, like a prescription bottle, and you just shake it up and down. He's like, that's the West Virginia mating call, which is sad and funny at the same time. It's just these people who just don't give a shit about the law, just do whatever they want, always get in trouble by the law. Some crazy stories about a nephew shooting his uncle in the face, and the uncle telling the story about it. And it's gold. It's gold.
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, I mean, if you have heard anything about like the opioid crisis, and you're interested in knowing what that looks like in real life, here you go.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. But I mean, just generations and generations of like super low income, low education levels, and just sort of the whole society that's built around that. It's crazy. It's really crazy is the only way I can think of to describe it accurately.
So the next one, which I'll try to keep these short, is American Movie. This is about a guy's who's hell-bent on getting a film made. So it's a documentary film about just about that. A guy wanting to get a movie made. I think his name was Mark Borchardt or something like that. No, that was Mark Borchardt. Him and his buddy, and it's from 1999, so like a little bit older. These guys, it's just a really good film. I highly recommend it. Not very much drug use. It's just more so about putting out this a horror movie and his trials and tribulations of going through it. And also, like, if you look him up now, he's kind of like a cult figure because he's put out some cult horror movies. The one that I think he was doing for American Movie, The Making of the Northwestern, was about a horror short that he created called Coven, which came out in 1997. Very eccentric guy. I think this is like up in Wisconsin where he does it, but I like it. Very good movie. I would say it's more innocent than anything else. Out of the second innocent after Small Town Security.
Yeah.
So, next one, really good. It's called Last Days Here. Last Days Here. And this one is about Bobby Liebling, who is the singer of the band Pentagram. Pentagram was like a band from the 70s, a real heavy band. And he basically like was a lifelong drug user, doing Xanax, heroin, crack, all in like his parents' basement. Like even at like, I don't know, he was probably what, like 50s? Yeah,
I mean he was like a grown ass man.
Yeah, so like he was like in his 50s, living in his parents' basement, doing all the drugs, and it's about a guy who discovered the band Pentagram on a CD, and eventually found Bobby Liebling and decided to try to get him to come back and, you know, play some music again. And Bobby Liebling turning his life around, and just the addiction with that, and like also like he ends up marrying like a pretty attractive girl. And it's just like, if you see him at the very beginning, he's like on death's door. Like he's like real super skinny. His eyes are real bugged out, gray hair, sores all over from itching. And then like he's playing a show at a big theater. And it's just crazy story. And I love it.
And everybody who knows him is just like, man, I just hope he shows up. Like they're all like, I really hope he can do it. This is such a great opportunity. And it's like they all want the best for him, but have known him long enough to know that the best for him is very, very, very rarely the decision he's going to make. And so just seeing like the consequences of his lifestyle long term is very sobering.
Yeah, for sure. It's very it's very, very crazy. But I'd recommend that one. So the next one we recommend is a documentary that is just called Stevie, Stevie. This is done by Stephen James, or Steve James, not the one. That's not who the movie's about. This is the guy who produced it. He put out a couple documentaries. One's called Hoop Dreams, which is really big. I think that's about some college kids or high school kids not making it to college, or NBA who are really good at basketball. One guy because he's pooping all. Anyway, just look it up. So this is done by Steve James. The movie's called Stevie. It revolves around a guy who who's has some issues mentally. Kind of starts off. So what happens is Steve James had this guy named Stevie that he was a big brother to, and when Steve James went to college, he had to stop being the big brother because it was out of state, and so it was basically him going back to see where's Stevie now. And so it cuts, I think it was like 10 years later, and Steve James has like a family and all this, but he goes back to Stevie, and Stevie's kind of like still in that small little town, living with his grandma. His grandma hates his mom. Stevie hates his mom because his mom is real abusive, and Stevie's dad died when he was young. Anyway, come to find out, Stevie got arrested between like the meeting Stevie after 10 years and the second time they came back. He was arrested for I don't want to give away. He was just arrested, some crazy stuff. But this guy's really crazy, and the reason why I bring it up is because it's really kind of trashy. And also it has some scenes where a guy is giving Stevie advice on what to do in prison when he goes to prison. Mm-hmm. And come to find out it's because he was the leader of that area's Ku Klux Klan.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it's in the show. It's crazy stuff. That one's more depressing. Yeah. But nonetheless, it's trashy. So I got two more. Last one, or second to last. This one's called Darlene Chronicles. I've only ever found it on YouTube. This is about a lady who lived in his Appalachian family. It starts off where it's black and white. So basically it's like a PBS documentary, like our school's documentary on this lady, her family that lives in a house with no electricity, no running water. And I think this was like in 50s, 60s, 60s, 70s, no running water, all that. And she's a character, like she just a natural character. She is married to this guy. They have like 4 kids. She was also seeing another guy at the same time, and she had some kids with him. So the kids that you see are like a mix between the dad of the household and then this random guy who's also like comes and picks Darlene up on the regular with the kids and leaves, but they're still married, and that continues until like Darlene dies down the road. Wow. Like they eventually like go from this house with no electricity, no running water, to a house that has some electricity, some running water, like just kind of run down, and the kids are all gone, and like one's a meth addict, another's like more normal. One guy I think tried to kill someone in Texas. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Darlene Chronicles, that's what that one's called. And the last one that I have is called American Hollow. There's a running thing with these films that I like. All involve South. So this one's called American Hollow, and this was directed by Rory Kennedy. So Rory Kennedy is the youngest child of Robert Kennedy, U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy, and Ethel Skaskell, whatever. So she's a Kennedy. She produced this documentary called American Hollow. American Hollow revolves follows the lives of a bowling family. Their last name's Bowling. Where basically they're just trying to survive in Appalachia, and it kind of revolves around like grandparents, and they had they're grown kids, and how they have raised them, and how some of them have gotten into trouble. Kind of simple minded in some aspects, and just trying to get out of the hollow that they're from if they can. Some of them trying to get out, and yeah, it's very interesting documentary. It's not Wonderful White's trashy, because it's not like the drug and alcohol and all that. It's just like, oh, this is like legit what people were like. I mean, I think this was filmed like in 1990, in the 90s, and these people were living, it seemed like 20 from like, I don't know, 50 years before, like almost like the mine just went out of business,
Yeah.
So very good one.
Nice.
So yeah, so if you like those, or if you like Tiger King, go through that list, watch some of those. You won't regret it.
So I've got a couple that I'm kind of surprised weren't on your list.
What's that?
Have you seen the Paradise Lost documentaries? It's an HBO documentary series. There's 3 of them, and I think they're about 2 hours each. But they're about the West Memphis 3, which were 3 boys in, I think it was like the early to mid 90s, who were accused of murdering a child. And they were all like fans of like metal, so they wore like Metallica shirts and stuff. And then there were these rumors that they were Satanists, and that this was part of some ritual and all this. But as they dig more into that and their families and the family of the kid that got killed and everything, it's just insane, dude. Like it's so on point with the other stuff that you've talked about. It seemed, just small town nonsense, and it's really. It's a downer.
Yeah, I'm totally down.
I'm
cool with that.
Okay.
That I think this one came up. So I was watching one about black metal in Iceland or wherever black metal came from, and that came from like watching a documentary on people who were addicted to Suboxone. Anyway, so they got onto the black metal documentary and it was about the guy who killed his bandmate. There's actually a movie out about it that just came out not too long ago. But yeah, I remember seeing this, but not pulling the trigger. I'm going to do that though.
Gotcha. Yeah, like I said, it's sad, and you definitely walk away from it with opinions on how it all went down. But another one is called Eileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer. And
is that about the first female serial killer?
Yes, in Florida. Yeah. And that's a pretty good one. And this one, I assume Sarah sent to you at some point. I have a hard time recommending it because it's just like stomach churning, but it's called Interview with a Cannibal. Oh yeah, I watched that one. Yeah, and it's about this Japanese guy who I think was in France and was like super isolated, super weird, and anyway, that's an intense one about a killer, and then about the way society has treated that killer across multiple countries, and it's just absolutely insane. It is the craziest thing I've ever watched. Right. Yeah, he was the guy who killed and ate I think she was from Dutch, a lady from Deutschland. Yeah, she sent that to me. It's crazy. That's super crazy. Yeah. And then go ahead. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, because I watched a YouTube video on a guy named Armin Mewies, who he had something to do with that guy that they did the interview with Cannibal on. Like, I don't know if it was like
inspired by or what, but yeah, this Armin guy killed and ate a person, and I think he initially only got like 8.5 years, and then they somehow changed it to life imprisonment or something like. But yeah.
And then I got 3 that are not as depressing.
Oh, okay.
So if anyone has sat through all this talk about poverty, drug use, and murder, and is looking for something a little bit less like heavy on the soul during,
then go watch a Disney movie, you asshole.
Number 1 is the Fire Festival documentary. There's actually one on Netflix and one on Hulu. Both are worth watching, but it's about this giant music festival that was put together by a guy who did not know what he was doing, and then it all just fell apart. And to me, it was really interesting just to hear the behind the scenes of like the employees and stuff who were involved, because I remember it being in the news, and hearing kind of like that inside baseball on it, but also to hear from the people who had bought tickets, because I remember thinking at the time, like, who the hell has the money to do that? And the answer is a lot of people, and you actually hear from some of them too, which to me, it was like a super foreign viewpoint on things, I guess, like where they're at in life. And so that was interesting to me.
Yeah, that was like the luxury music festival.
Yes, on like a private island in the Bahamas or something. Yeah. So another one, so one of my favorite bands is The National. Yeah. And a few years ago, a documentary came out called Mistaken for Strangers, which is one of their song titles, but it's basically kind of following the band on tour. But the documentary is actually about the kind of screw-up brother of the lead singer who was on tour with them.
So that's a great one.
It's so weird. It's such a weird premise for a documentary, but it's really interesting. And like, I love the band, so that was part of my fascination with it, but also just the story of it in the documentary I thought was really good.
Well, that reminds me of the other one too, that I really like, The Devil and Daniel Johnston.
Oh yeah, that's
The Devil and Daniel Johnston, who's unfortunately he passed away not too long ago, but
I drive by that "Hi, how are you" graffiti wall in Austin every day going to and from work. Or at least I did when we were still allowed to leave the apartment. Yeah,
so it's about a musician who's not from Austin but set his roots in Austin and influenced a lot of people, but he had a lot of mental issues. And it was just, this one's kind of crazy. I wouldn't consider it trash. It's just kind of crazy because, like, one, not too many people know about Daniel Johnston, and they should. But it's also just to see, like, you see, like, his mental disorders and, like, the bipolar and stuff, and you see how it, like, how his thing was like almost religious, where like he went super religious, and it was almost because of that stuff. Like, he has like mental breakdowns, and he takes the keys out of an airplane while they're flying him and his dad back to the place. It's crazy stuff.
And then the last one on my list was another HBO documentary, but it's a lot more recent, and it's called The Inventor, and it is about Elizabeth Holmes, who was the head of this company called Theranos, that was huge and got a ton of investment money without ever actually demonstrating the ability to provide anything of value. And her relationship with a much older like business advisor, and you find out all kinds of crazy stuff about her as a person, and just the impact and how she was enabled to do all this stuff. And it's just insane. It is an absolutely insane story that is also fairly recent and just really interesting all around.
Did she go to jail?
I don't know.
Her husband went to University of Texas. That one of the businessmen. Ramish.
Yeah.
Nine counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Pled not guilty.
But anyway, that's one that it's really interesting. But it's also just a really, really well-made documentary. It had a lot of budget behind it and is put together well and is interesting. So that's one worth watching.
Yep. So that's the list. That's if you want to watch some stuff like Tiger King. And if you appreciate Tiger King for its trashiness, there's some are in there are trashy, others are a little trashy, but still worth the watch.
Yeah. So yeah, this is our first bonus content episode this season, but it probably won't be the last because we got a lot of time on our hands, and we know that you've got a lot of time on your hands. So here we are.
Yep.
Cool. Check us out on Monday. We'll have our episode about Hereditary and our first question of the week to lead towards the movie ticket giveaway. So if you want to know more about that, go back and listen to our Season 7 kickoff, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.